Hello. Um, this is recorded at least a day later than when we talked about boot camp. My throat was hurting a lot more, and um, when I got up, I was feeling lightheaded. Um, and there's a lot more to talk about in the Navy, and I didn't want to do it all at once. I don't talk very much in regular day-to-day life, so I'm sure that doesn't help. Um, um, if I have anything, I don't feel much worse. I was a little hot the night before. I woke up sweating a couple times. And then just a sore throat and the wooziness um, are still there. Um, a little bit less though. We ended up at boot camp. Um, I was in the shower earlier. Um, it's usually how I prepare for this. I go sit under the shower and let the water hit the back of my head, and it helps me think and remember. And I have very vivid memories of the Navy, and I was trying to figure out why there's such a difference. Um, Typically, when I look back and remember something, at best, I remember a flash of something. Um, and then the story of that is sort of connected to that image or that flash of whatever it is. But the Navy, I have very strong memories. Like something may have happened yesterday. Um, and I was trying to figure out why. Um, I think it has to do with repetition. Um, a lot of in the Navy on all the different parts were basically doing the same thing every day. And so I think that helps a great deal cement things in my mind. Um, Even to this day, and what I imagine my future is like, repetition is at its core. Um, COVID has certainly made that clear, though it was the same way before. Um, and I'm happier that way. Um, so let's see. We talked about boot camp. We had ended there. Um, my mindset at the time. Now boot camp was miserable. Um, my mindset at the time was I was still very arrogant. Of course, you think you know everything. Um, I'm still like, what, 18 or 19? I don't remember. Um, must be 18 or not. I don't remember. What was it? 1999? Summer of 99? That would be 18. Um, that makes sense. So, um, I am very proud of myself. Boot camp is what I imagined to be the most difficult for me because even though I played outside as a child, I was very skinny, very tall. Um, I had no interest in sports or working out or exercise, though I did continue that even when it wasn't required. So at this time, it was one of the only times in my life where I would occasionally go to the gym once or twice a week. Now, I would not be running any extra. Let's not get crazy. Um, but body-wise, it was certainly um, my peak, and I didn't put on much weight. I was still very skinny, but of course you put on more muscle weight. Um, I didn't Up to that time, I could eat anything. Eat junk food, drink sodas. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't gain weight. That never changed till right around 30-ish, I'd say, is when I started um, being more conscious, and you could see a difference. So I was very proud of myself. I was still very arrogant, still very sharp, very quick. Um, the way that I learned was um, putting my nose in, reading it a bunch of times, and repetition. That's it. I still struggle with names and dates, nouns, I guess, uh, but I would just force it through. Um, we also get to now, I have the relationship with my girlfriend. It was long distance, and that adds a terrible multiplier to the difficulty of things. So to review, it was first time really in love, um, long distance, um, the extreme difficulties of boot camp and military life on my end. And then the past of, like my struggling with love, like my dad would hit me, um, and then say that he loves me. He's sorry he loves me. That left a profound bitterness, and distrust of the word and the feeling, conditioned in my mind, to sort of reject that, or to be suspicious of it. Um, so we are very far from that person to me, but we are much closer, um, from child me to where I am now. There's clear progression. Um, After boot camp, we're going to go into the school part of it. So we'll talk about school. After the school part is the ship part, and then we'll talk about the the climax of the Navy, and then the sort of um, prelude to my 20s. Probably the darkest, most nihilistic portion of my life. So, and a lot of that you comes from when I was young and all the stories and all the books. Remember, I would read multiple books every day. A lot of um, the ideal sort of life ingrained into my mind about what was going to be happening, the hero's journey, um, being a hero. I will admit to anyone, um, I had have a hero complex. I want to save people. Um, I have these noble ideas. And when I was younger, I was willing to um, put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, to stand up for these ideals or to stand up for things that I saw were wrong. Um, so I wasn't yet tempered by realism, which I guess is a way to describe my 20s. Um, but that includes love too in stories. I would read about love in stories, about true love, and even as told by the old people. They'll tell you stories about how they would go. I'm just making this up, it's not really- but how they would go to you know the the candy shop, the shake shop on the corner every day and flirt with this girl who didn't seem to be interested until one day she says okay, and now they're married for 30 years. All the old people had stories. Persistence was a virtue. And even in stories. Nowadays, persistence is not a virtue, um, but it was ingrained in me. Um, Nowadays, it's no means no, and you're a creep if you ever um, even think about asking a girl out twice. Um, so a lot of these ideals that I get from stories or from history, um, this time is sort of mixing it in and finding out what the real world is like in adulthood. Shocker, it doesn't go very well. Um, so I don't know how long these will take. I don't prepare for these in any other way, so I'll just talk about my memories as they come up. And then if I miss something later on, I'll throw them in. But it is certainly a profound time in my life. And the school part is really the pinnacle of my pinnacle of my education, not necessarily my education, but my testing of myself to see my potential. Because all growing up, you might be the smartest or near smartest person in the class or the school. And they always tell you, oh, you can do anything you want. Oh, you can go. So I'm told all these things. I believe some of them. I also understand a lot of my limitations at this point. I have no skill or no interest in, say, cars. A lot of it, because my dad, he'd be perpetually working on a broken down car for years. And I had no interest in spending time with him. So I didn't pick up your normal country boy education on vehicles or fixing cars or anything. I had no interest in that. I did show, I mentioned before, physics. I didn't do well the first time I took it, but I aced it the second time. So I have a strong inclination towards science, with the exception of certain things. Biology, I hated. It was just boring memorization back then. Um, we knew about DNA, but a lot of the breakthroughs that make things interesting now, like the mRNA vaccines, um, that interest me, uh, weren't highlighted to me. Um, they there are a couple things in biology that draw me in now. But for the most part, it was all memorization. It was just boring. Um, uh, Geology also not very exciting to me. A little bit. Astronomy still very exciting. Piqued my interest. Um, so those type of things were all things that I thought about what I wanted to do. Energy. My only reluctance was again, my dad worked at a nuclear power plant, and if my dad did something, I was not interested in doing it. But there's also a core part of my personality here I don't think I've talked about yet, is that it was my desire to change the world for good, to put my knowledge to use, to discover something, or to make something more efficient. And energy, when one looks at sort of history, you can, in a way, categorize things by the amount of available energy. Um, so that is a huge need for our civilizations. And if there was something in energy that I could do better, well, that would affect a lot of people. Um, and that's ignoring the whole um, destroyer of worlds thing, where energy can be turned into weapons. Um, so this was a place in my head that called to me. And for me to do something, my throat is starting to hurt, I'm sorry. Um, for me to do something on a day-to-day basis, I need to have an interest in it. Um, and this did call to me. So I was able to devote the full amount of my mind to this. And uh, I'm going to go ahead and say you had to do three schools. Let's see how good I remember. You had to do your job or your rate. So electronics technician for me, that was, I believe, 6 months. You had to do uh, nuclear power, and this covers a lot of topics, radiation, um, the different types of nuclear power, and the different ways it works, as well as the science portions of that, um, like fluid dynamics. Um, and then the other 6 month school was more of it was still book learning, but it was specifically learning a, a reactor, a reactor that they had on there. So you're reading the manuals. You're basically, you can say you're applying for that job there at the school on the reactor that they had there. But we'll get more into that later. So the first one was your job school. Um, I want to talk briefly about the setup because it applies to all three. I did all three in the same. The third school, there's actually two locations that you could go to. I believe you did have some sort of choice. The difference, one was in New York. I'd never been to New York. I didn't really want to go. I didn't want to move. And then the reactor there was different than the one um, in South Carolina. And it would just be easier. You sort of had an introduction to it already since a, a lot of the classes would use that as a reference. So instead of learning an entirely new system, it was easier just to stay there and continue learning about that one. Trust me, the school was hard enough. I didn't need it any more difficult. A basic idea about the school, I want to, especially to my daughter, what she's encountered to school so far at a young age is going to be completely different. I don't, it's not even comparable to college, at least college classes that I've taken yet. So this is from memory, so it's not going to be entirely accurate, but basically your entire day, for the most part, asterisk, is involved in this school. So you're going to wake up, you're going to get your room clean, just like boot camp. Um, you're going to make sure your uniform's clean. You're going to have breakfast. You're going to take care of everything. Uh, and then you're going to go to school. You're not going to be done with school until it's dark outside. That's either through classes or through your homework or through studying. Um, and then you're still going to have military responsibilities on top of that, like you're exercising or whatever. So realistically, now of course it's going to vary depending on how quick you pick up material, how if you're behind, if you're in trouble. But realistically speaking, if you have an hour or so, that would be a pretty good day um, to yourself. Now, there are a couple unique things that I remember that are just very odd. Um, but I guess when you have a school full of super nerds, there are some weird quirks in life that just make things better. One of them that I'm just going to mention right now is there was a soda machine that I want to say it was Dr. Pepper because that's my favorite. But maybe it was Coke or something else. But there was we'll just say it's Dr. Pepper. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. You would put your money in and you would hold the Dr. Pepper button down on the machine. You wouldn't like tap it or press it once. You would hold it. And every other one would come out. You would get two. Now, this like secret knowledge gets passed on. I don't know if someone broke the machine. I don't know if they're all like, I don't know. So that was one thing. The second, this is some weird hacker shit, was that there was a way to make free collect calls. Now, I know this is going to be very weird, but we used to have these things called payphones. They were everywhere on every corner. You would put in a quarter or later 35 cents or something like that, or two quarters. And then you could, most common was 1-800 dial AT&T, I think, something like that. Call AT&T. But basically, you pick up the phone, you do that. Uh, the operator tries to connect you with the other landline number, and then you say like your name or you give your code, like so and so gave birth to a girl, and then the other person accepts and they get billed for it. Well, if you, I don't remember exactly how. Okay, so you pick up the phone and you have a ringtone. Then you hit the little flipper thing that the phone rests on, and then you let go and you keep flipping it, and you're waiting for a certain tone that happens. I am misremembering this. That's basically, and then you dial the 1-800 thing collect, but it doesn't charge anybody. Um, this worked there on the base. I don't know why it worked. Whenever I would try it, not on the base, like say I was at a grocery store or something, it would break the phone. It would break um, the payphone. You wouldn't get a dial tone anymore. It would just be dead. So this is some super nerd hacking that occurred. I don't know how it worked. Um, but there was these little things that just they made life a little bit easier. Um, and I thought that, were funny. Um, so the first school was the most difficult for me. This is the one about my job, electronics technician. I remember getting in trouble. I remember not having the best grades. Concepts that are hard for me. Electricity is very hard for me to understand, conceptually. Um, I can memorize things. You can tell me how it works. But in my mind, I do not get a picture of how it works. So when you start to go into voltage or three-phase AC, I can memorize things all you want, and I can probably get a pretty good grade on a test, but I have no conceptual understanding of it. Um, so I would not make a good teacher for it. I struggled with this a lot, and it put a lot of doubts into my mind. Can I do this? Am I capable of this? And one of the things in the military, at least back then, I hope they fixed it by now, but once you get in trouble once, you become like a pariah. They just don't become interested in you. Oh, you messed this up, and your history continues and compounds. Um, and there are certainly favorites, and there's a good boy system, and they can look the other way whenever they want. Um, so I got labeled a non-compliant. I don't, I don't know. I was a troublemaker, so I had to work extra hard to do everything right. One example I remember, um, it was raining very heavily. It was at night. Of course, we all wear these dark coats and everything. And I was going from It's a very long walk from the school building back to the where I was staying, the barracks. So I was hurrying ahead. I had my head down. I didn't see anything. There was an officer that walked by a person, but of course I couldn't see anything. Um, and I wouldn't, you have to salute an officer that walks by. Um, but I didn't see him, so he got all mad and offended, and I got in trouble for this. It's just stupid things like that. Um, Ego, um, and a system far out of date for fairness, equality, or um, merit. Um, if I remember any other incidents of me being bad, I'll tell them. They're not all unfair, obviously. I'm a snappy person, so I probably did deserve some of them. Um, but the bad thing is it affects your schoolwork because these people in charge of you, your instructors, you can also get in trouble for the military side of things. Um, I did have some that were very good. I remember one guy had a mustache. I don't remember his name. We did soldering with him. Um, this is not a skill. I'm not artistic. I'm not good with my hands, so it was not a skill I'm good at. Um, but I remember talking with him. I love stories. I love hearing people's stories. I love learning about them. And he was willing to share um, a lot of his story. And so I always enjoyed when he was the instructor. And I don't remember his name. I'm sorry. But he had a mustache. Um, And so the first 6 months was a big, big struggle. I very much questioned whether I was capable. There is a very high dropout rate for the school. You see people leaving all the time or getting kicked out or being sent to other schools. It is very demanding, and like I said, you have very little free time. So in the background, I still have this long distance relationship. You're having to call long distance. You dreaming of seeing people or having free time is just a dream, and it's a dangerous dream. Um, you need to be focused 100% on what's going on. Um, but I struggled through it. I doubled down, even through the disciplinary problems. And of course, at this time, I've already noticed, well, once you mess up, they just don't really forgive you. Um, and that's inherently unfair. Um, oh, the other thing to mention is that in this school, there's no such thing as multiple choice. Literally every question is essay. So they ask you a question, hey, what is this? It's an essay answer. You don't get any multiple choice. It's all essay. So you have to understand and know what is going on. And that's one of the reasons I struggled because some of these concepts, like electricity, um, I struggle with conceptually. And so um, the way I have to do it is I have to memorize the answers, even if I don't necessarily understand it 100%. Um, so you're not skating by because if you have multiple choice in randomness, you could have someone who passes without ever knowing it. That is not the case. You will never have anyone pass the school without knowing it. It's designed that way. So, yeah, no 1 in 4 chance that you're going to get the answer right no matter what, or usually 50-50 on multiple choice tests. You can usually eliminate two of them pretty easy. So, yeah, very difficult, extremely difficult. And I was very proud of myself after the first one. Um, the second one, the second school about nuclear science um, and all the different classes with that, I did much better. It was night and day. We're starting to get into my passions. Um, it, you would not believe. My relief when some of these subjects came up, and I was much happier. I was like, okay, there is an end to this. I can do this. Um, my confidence rose. Along with confidence comes arrogance. Um, but it was night and day, night and day. And when you start to do better academically, there's a little more lenience. Remember the good boy system, um, for the disciplinary side. So that was extremely helpful. And it was, I need to know that there is a purpose for something. Um, and then if I'm working towards something, I can eventually obtain it. So my grades rose dramatically, not top of the class or anything, but you're talking about struggling to pass to easily, um, a B or an A or whatever it is. Of course, there's some subjects, not very good at or struggle with, but it was never on my mind, okay, well, I might fail this. Nope, not anymore. Um, I, looking back, um, I am grateful to have had the challenge to understand my potential, to look for my limits. Um, so even when I criticize the institution or a method or a philosophy, uh, I never want that to be overlooked. Um, Now, of course, they have their own selfish reasons. They're training um, the brightest of the country to operate their most um, complex and vital war pieces. So they want the best, um, and they selfishly want that. So um, they have their reasons for the way things are set up, but overall, that portion was very good for me, and I want you to understand how difficult it was. There were many nights where I cried. Many nights, especially in the first school, where I questioned myself, I questioned my choices, and I questioned what I could do. But the second season of that, just completely different. Um, so, I'm trying to think if there's anything other cool. I don't think so. There is a difference between the second and third school. Remember, the third one is a more on-the-job training. You're given you have, it was on a submarine there. You have the nuclear reactor, and your job is to basically train, and you pass that school after 6 months by doing basically an interview. It's an all essay. They ask you any question they want. You're expected to be able to go up on a board, draw out or write out or explain anything they want, absolutely anything. It's an open board, and you have to pass it. Um, so this is completely different than the other two schools. Um, you are not given any timetable. You're given a rough outline. Hey, here's the things you should look at. Um, your study time is on your own. Basically, uh, uh, you have access to the sub. and you have access to a giant library full of manuals. In reality, this is what it is. And your day is to go in there. Do you want to go look at the sub? Do you want to go bury yourself in the manuals? And then you have instructors that you can ask questions to. Um, what you have to is you're given a book. I remember now. You're given a book, and then there's these topics. And if you feel confident, now you can always go and ask some questions, right? But if you feel confident and say, "Hey, I've studied this topic. I want to demonstrate my knowledge." You go to one of the instructors. They ask you all sorts of questions about it. If you have demonstrated knowledge, they will sign off on that section. So your job is to get them to sign off on your book and then do your final exam. If I've missed anything, I'm very sorry, but that's what I remember. This was incredible to me. This freedom, um, this where your learning, your experience is dependent upon you creating your own schedule, learning at your own pace. This was just amazing to me. Oh, I thrived. I thrived. This was even better than the second school. Um, if I could design a learning environment for me, this has to be near perfection. Um, there were some other perks to this. You didn't live, your living situation was different. I'm trying to remember. If you were married, if you were high enough rank, you could live off the base. Um, and so this was the point a lot of people in the Navy would get married just because you get extra money, you get housing privileges. Um, so uh, you'll hear a lot of stories about that, but I don't remember exactly how I lived. I do have a story I have to mention. Um, one of my friends got married. He was from Texas. Um, Daryl. I can't remember his face, but you always go by last names. With Peterson? I'm not sure. So that I can't remember. I remember his first name and not his last name is weird, but I remember his face. He was from Texas. He married a very pretty, very nice girl. I want to say her name is Heather. Now I was buddies with him. There's a couple stories I want to tell here. Um, I was buddies with him, so he told me everything. He he had cheated on her. They had a long distance relationship too, I think. And before she moved, before they got married, he was going out and having sex with these other girls. And this bothered me. Um, but it wasn't until the point where she came to move in, they got married, that it really bothered me because um, I'm a big sucker for pretty girls, first of all. Um, and what he did really rubbed me wrong. So he was cheating on her. He ended up getting an STD um, from one of these other girls. So his wife, he ended up giving it to her. He convinced her that she had given it to him. And this broke me, um, where morally I didn't know what was the right thing to do. Now, this was my friend, he was. Um, I knew that he lied to her. Um, is it the right thing to do to let them handle their own business, or do I tell her because it's the right thing to do? Um, so these are when I start encountering these real world problems, is when I start to really care about philosophy a lot more, about morality, and what is truly right or wrong, um, or how we interpret that. I ended up telling her. Um, they split up. Um, she ended up giving me a present. I like lawn gnomes at this time. I had a small collection. There was some show that inspired me. It was Threesome or something like that. The show, I want to say it was like two guys and a girl or something, and they just hung out at college. And one of the scenes they ended up stopping, jumping over a fence, stealing someone's lawn gnome, and then keeping it all semester or something. This always just tickled my brain in some way. Um, she hand painted me this lawn gnome, and it was, I don't know, a foot or so tall. And I had that thing for a very long time, and I don't know where it is. Um, but she wrote, I'm pretty sure her name was Heather, so to Aaron from Heather on the bottom of it. I found her later. I tried to find her sometime later after the Navy, and she was going to get married again or something. But I haven't heard anything or seen her since. Um, but yeah. Um, let's see. There were some very strange. I have another strange story. I want to do it before I forget, involving this time. This is a time when there's a little bit more freedom, right? And of course, I'm doing better. So, you know, you can go outside the base or whatever. Now we're in like Goose Creek, South Carolina, right? This is not, okay, one strip clubs there are pasties, at least back then. Um, you know, so it's not a wild night on the town or anything, but there was a wild party night. Um, that was a weird incident. I had this other friend named George, pretty sure. Maybe I'm confusing things. Georgie? Not sure. Anyway, he had a girlfriend. There was a couple of weird instances. I don't remember if it's the same girl or not. I have three stories about him, I think. If it's the same person I'm remembering. First is that he had a girlfriend off-site, and they invited me to dinner, and they told me it was going to be pasta. Now, I'm a very picky eater. I don't mean to offend people, so I was kind of trying to figure out what it was going to be to make sure that I would be polite and I'd be able to eat it. I was told pasta. This is great. How do you mess up pasta or spaghetti or something like that? I was like, how do you mess this up? I get there and he's from Jersey. Now, I do not mean to be offensive, but I'm going to be here. Uh, I don't think I've ever had an encounter with anyone who I would consider polite. Um, and the Jersey accent, I think, highlights their region, so it's more memorable. And I've had a lot of bad experiences. So they were both from Jersey. When I got there, it was not like pasta it was like a white sauce, vinegary. I know by smelling something whether I will be able to eat something. Uh, I was not able to eat it, and I felt terrible, but of course it was offensive. Um, I don't know what the moral of the story is, but it was a strong memory. Uh, um, there was another very, this is a weird one. This involved my buddy Daryl. I'm gonna call this other guy George, but he had a very long name, I think, and maybe George was part of it, or G was part of it. Um, we were in a motel room. There was drinking. Um, there were couples, including my buddy Daryl with some girl, including George with his girlfriend. Did she have a mustache? You know, ladies sometimes grow a little hair or something, but I think maybe, um, I'm not sure. I remember that I passed out on like one of those small couches in a hotel room, and I woke up and she had her hands in my pants. She was giving me a hand job, and I woke up to that, and then he was sitting next to her. So it was me, like, sort of laying down. She was sitting next to me. She had her hands in my pants, and then he was sitting like behind her, looking over her shoulder, like grinning. I was very weirded out by this. Um, and I quickly got up and did not want that to go any further than that. Um, Now I am only half sure this is the same person, but he had there was a very strange thing that happened in the Navy at the time. I don't know if it is now, but it's actually illegal in the Navy laws. The UCMJ was illegal to adultery was illegal. So um, if it's the same person, maybe it was someone different, but the same. He was convicted of having an adultery with a civilian. So like his civilian girlfriend was actually married, and he was convicted of that. That's very rare, but it was involved. There was a suicide attempt. I don't remember the details of it. Um, there was a lot of blood. I remember that. But there was a suicide attempt, and he got um, separated from the Navy. Um, so um, these are, you know, life experiences that happen, um, and they were important enough for me to remember. So I want to pass them on, and maybe they'll be interesting or useful or helpful to someone later on. Um, the school ended up, back to the educational part of it, going just swimmingly. I actually have something else really good occur. You're given a lot more leniency in time, like I mentioned. So sometimes I would go on the sub, and I remember the cool instructor I had, the soldering one. I think it was him. We had talked a lot about sound-powered phones. Um, let's see what sound-powered phones here. Yeah, these are it right here. Okay, so these are a really cool idea. They work on the ship. They are sound-powered, just like they say. Um, this looks correct. Um, so on our training submarine there were broken ones. And I remember talking with him about it. and I wanted to learn more about it. This was not a requirement in any way. I think we talk about them briefly, but this was just an extra thing. Um, so I was looking at them, trying to figure out what was wrong, and I started to fix them, the broken ones. Um, so I thought that was very cool, and a little extra side project. I didn't get any extra credit, but it was just fun, something that you find passion about. Um, let's see what else. Again, I loved the format. I love the open discussion, um, the the open essay, talking essay to show your knowledge or understanding of a topic. I think this is just a great way for me personally for education, for learning, for demonstrating knowledge. It was just super fun. This is one of the few times in the Navy where I was just happy, man. I even considered wanting to be an instructor there, because it was just so good for me. Ultimately, because of the way the good boy system, um, the way the institution was set up, I decided I did not want um, to be a part of that. Um, but I was deeply considering it. It was just a lot of fun, past all the bullshit. So, and again, you learn a lot. You're learning incredible details about these systems and how they work. And just to go over a brief idea of what nuclear power is, it's not crazy. It's not. There's a lot of difficulties in understanding it and materials, but the basic idea is simple. For nuclear power, you have your fuel source, which is uranium. And really, to break it down to make it really easy, this is just a rock that puts out radiation. Um, we use, and then heat comes with the release of that radiation and the radiation itself hitting the water. So basically, it's a fancy way to boil water. We've been boiling water for a very long time, and we use that boiled water to make steam, and that steam will turn a turbine, which makes electricity or move the ship. You also divert some of that steam to your catapults to launch airplanes off the deck. So that is how nuclear power in a basic works. It heats water. Um, um, Maybe I'll do a little intro to that some other time, but it's fun to talk about and draw out at bars and stuff, or talk to kids about because it's really interesting. Um, but most people think it's some super secret thing. Uh, it's not. Um, Now, of course, the weapon side of it is different. I have no interest in nuclear power weapons or nuclear weapons. So, only interested in the power of the energy side, which can be dangerous. But the way that it's set up, especially modern ones, even generations after what I learned on, are super safe. Only if you design them to not be safe are there usually any problems. Um, um, but at least I want to say the technical word, but I can't remember it. It's we use a negative coefficient for something. Basically, as you um, heat up the water, it doesn't become more dangerous. Um, I'll look up the words for it later. The difference in the Russian one, Chernobyl, is the one I'm thinking about, where you the rods were made of the different material. No, I can't remember what it is. Um, I'll look it up later because it'll bug me if I don't look up what I'm trying to say with my mind. See, it's already bugging me. Um, what is it? Graphite. I used graphite. There's a specific word that I'm looking for. I don't think any of these have it. I'll look it up later. Um, so it was a lot of fun and really, I don't know if I had become an instructor, things would probably be a lot different. They would have even taken me. But I certainly excelled there, and I look back fondly on that time. Um, we'll stop here. I have to go to the bathroom and my throat is hurting. So I need to get a drink and I'll upload this. And next time we'll talk about the ship. Anything that I've forgotten, I'll mention, and then we'll talk about the aftermath um, and how that set things up for the rest of my life up to here. So I hope this was enjoyable, and I will talk to y'all later.